Hey guys, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and it is Sunday, so we are doing breaches of the week. And before we begin, I'd like to thank the following people: Rebecca Rutherford, Chris Fallon, Odin O, I'm assuming no relation to the Norse god, David Walker, Neville Goodalls, and Craig McHugh. Guys, thank you very much for sending in information. It always helps me out. And if I missed your name, please let me know. I'll add it to next week. And if you have a tip for me, please bring it in on Data Breaches of the Week. And let's get started. Now, before we begin with an actual breach, I want to actually talk about why we do these videos. And the reason why I do these videos every Sunday for Breaches of the Week is to raise awareness, and a new study has come out that really reinforces the reason why I like to do these videos. Now, this report is on data breaches, and it is by the National Cybersecurity Alliance. Now, according to the data, the percentage of small businesses that have experienced a data breach in the last 12 months range from about 11% of very small businesses to 44% of mid-sized businesses, with basically 28% as an average. So if we are looking at small to mid-sized business, almost 1/3 of all mid-sized businesses in the last year have experienced some kind of cyber incident, some kind of data breach. Now, these numbers are here, and I think they're rather interesting. 69% were offline for a limited time as a result of a data breach. 37% of the businesses suffered financial loss. 25% of these businesses, which is basically 25% of 1/3, filed for bankruptcy. 10% completely go out of business by virtue of this. Now, according to the data, nearly half of the businesses, 46% that were surveyed, feel that they are prepared to respond to an incident. But obviously, with all of these outcomes and these percentages, it's evident that really small to mid-sized business just basically doesn't know how to prevent a data breach, or is actually ill-prepared no matter what they think. Now, the good news is that 83% of small to mid-sized businesses are putting some kind of awareness training in place for their people. I highly recommend that. In most cases, 69%, though, say it's less than 8 hours annually, which obviously isn't enough. So that is why we do this. We have a backdrop of businesses, organizations, and individuals getting hit left and right, and it's a very serious problem we have that, quite frankly, not a lot of people are I think, aware of how wide this is. This is just such a huge scope. And so I do these videos to do awareness, to do education, to do training. Every day, even outside of Breaches of the Week, I try to, basically get out of partisan anything and stick to facts, stick to information. And so that is why we do these. Now, with that, let's actually start talking about the data breaches. And we are going to start with NordVPN. This is actually a very popular VPN provider. Basically, they just got hit, or rather they got hit a while ago. Now, this admission comes from rumors that the company had been breached, and it first emerged that NordVPN had an expired internal private key exposed, and that basically potentially allowed anybody to spin up their own VPN server and imitate NordVPN. So you think you're connecting to Nord, you could be connecting to basically somebody malicious. Now, NordVPN told TechCrunch that one of its data centers was accessed in March 2018. And I quote, "Out of the data centers in Finland we are renting our servers from was accessed with no authorization." Now, the attacker gained access to the server, which had been active for about a month or so, and by exploiting an insecure remote management system, basically they left this open and the hacker was able to get in. Now, NordVPN said that it was unaware that this system existed as they were leasing the server, and here we are. So NordVPN was hit, and coincidentally, by virtue of that, TorGuard VPN, which is a smaller player, was also hit because they leased from the same server infrastructure as Nord. So there it is. If you use NordVPN or TorGuard VPN, heads up to you. Moving on, we are going to be talking about Crystal. That's Crystal with a K. This is a fast food chain in the United States. I don't know if they're anywhere else. They just had a payment card processing hit, and they were hit, according to Crystal themselves, at certain restaurants between July and September of this year. No information as to which restaurants were hit. So if you've eaten at Crystal, heads up, your credit card may have been compromised. Moving on, we're going to be talking about the Betty Jean Kerr People's Health Center in St. Louis, Missouri. 152,000 patients were involved. Now, this attack involved Patient information such as addresses, social security numbers, but no patient medical records. Information on medical providers and health center employees were also breached. This was a ransomware hit and they refused to pay. So heads up if you have anything to do with the Betty Jean Kerr People's Health Center in St. Louis, Missouri. Moving on, we're going to be talking about Congressman Lance Gooden. He is a representative in the United States Congress, and he had his own very personal and I think a little funny data breach because he was in a congressional hearing and the TV was trained on him and he unlocked his phone on public TV and now we all know his password. His password is 777777. That's all he did, and you could tell by where his hand was according to the screen that it was tapped out all sevens, and so there you go. This is reminiscent of when Kanye West, the famous hip-hop star, was with President Trump in front of a whole bunch of reporters, and Kanye opened up his phone typing all zeros into it. So Congressman or Kanye, if you're watching this, and odds are you're not, but if you are, I'm more than happy to give you free cybersecurity lessons. Moving on, we're going to be talking about an organization called Sweetster. This is a nonprofit mental health organization in Maine. About 20,000 of their clients, names, addresses, dates of birth, telephone numbers, social security numbers, health insurance information, identification numbers, driver's license numbers, Medicare or Medicaid information, payment or claims information, diagnostics code, and information regarding medical conditions and treatment were breached. So heads up to you, any patients or clients of Sweetster. Moving on, we're going to be talking about Kalispell Regional Healthcare out of Montana in the United States. 129,000 health records. Now, a phishing scam started collecting patient records around May 24th, was discovered in June. Names, addresses, medical record numbers, dates of birth, telephone numbers, email addresses, medical history, treatment information, date of service, treating and referring physician, medical bill account number, and or health insurance information was hit. The hospital says around 250 patients or fewer may have also had their social security numbers hit. So heads up to you if you are a patient of the Kalispell Regional Healthcare in Montana. Moving on, we are going to be talking about CenturyLink. That is a large internet service provider and communications provider in the United States. A third-party cloud database consisting of customer service technician and call agent data was wide open to the public. This apparently was a misconfigured MongoDB, which is a database that is oftentimes used in the cloud. CenturyLink account number and type of services contracted, such as broadband or home security, was exposed as well. So heads up, if you are a subscriber to CenturyLink, you may have been exposed. Moving on, let's talk about AutoClerk. This week has been kind of nuts. AutoClerk. Now, this is actually a service that is owned by Best Western Hotels and Resorts Group. Hundreds of thousands of booking reservations for guests were available to view, and data including full names, dates of birth, home addresses, phone numbers, dates, and travel costs, some check-in times and room numbers, and masked credit card details were also exposed. But what makes this actually worse is that AutoClerk is actually a contractor for the United States government, and by virtue of that, government officials and military officials in the US government were exposed by virtue of this data breach. So heads up to you, if you've ever stayed at a Best Western hotel or resort, you may have been exposed. Moving on, let's talk about Avast. Now, Avast is a security company. They make an antivirus and some other stuff as well. They suffered another malicious intrusion into their network, but the attackers did not actually accomplish what they were set out to originally do, which was basically compromise releases to the very popular CCleaner or CCleaner utility. And so basically, and I quote Avast, after further analysis, we found that the internal network was successfully accessed with compromised credentials through a temporary VPN profile that had erroneously been kept enabled and did not require 2FA. Basically, the hackers were able to get in by hitting the VPN and moving on that way. So heads up to anybody that uses Avast. It's actually not a product I recommend, but that is a debate for another day. Moving on, let's talk about Adobe. Yes, the Adobe, the massive creative cloud company. They just got hit with a massive data breach, exposing 7.5 million creative cloud accounts to the public. Now, Reportedly, a database containing sensitive user information was easily accessible to anybody through basically a web browser. Email addresses, the Adobe products they subscribe to, account creation date, subscription and payment status, local time zone, member ID, time of the last login, and whether they were an Adobe employee or not was all exposed out there. So heads up, Adobe users, Creative Cloud users, you guys got hit. Moving on, we were talking about 7-Eleven. This is the Japanese-owned convenience store across the United States, and I've pretty much seen them in other countries as well, so they're pretty much everywhere. They have their own fuel app for those people that fuel at a 7-Eleven gas station, and you know where I'm going with this. Names, email addresses, cell phone numbers, and dates of birth were exposed. Now, this app has been downloaded over 2 million times and was taken offline for several hours while 7-Eleven fixed this. Apparently, somebody was able to log into the app and see other people's information. So heads up, if you use the 7-Eleven fuel app, you may have been exposed. Moving on, we're going to be talking about the Home Group. Now, this is one of the biggest housing associations in the United Kingdom. They warned 4,000 customers that their personal details may have been stolen after the company suffered a data breach. Customer names, addresses, contact information, but no financial data was exposed through the Home Group, so heads up if you have anything to do with them. Moving on, we're going to be talking about Magellan National Imaging Services, Magellan National Imaging Associates. Now, they're typically a third-party vendor who manages radiology benefits, and it was discovered in July that one of their employees had fallen victim to a phishing attack. Now, through this attack, hackers were able to send out large volumes of unsolicited commercial email through an infected account. Additionally, Magellan determined that the hacker may have gained access to the employee's login credentials. They notified, whoever their clients were affected. One of those was Geisinger Health Plan out of Pennsylvania, and Geisinger then sent notifications to its patients. So if any other come out as a result of this supply chain hit, the Magellan National Imaging Associates, I'll definitely let you know, but this is a quintessential third-party vendor pretty much making sure that all of their clients have to send out notifications of breach on their watch. And finally, let's talk about this week's vertical that is under attack. I've talked about governments and healthcare and all of that. This time, we're going to be talking about law firms because according to law.com, they've got some information. More than 100 large law firms have reported data breaches to authorities in 14 states since 2014. Now, two of these largest law firms that were reporting breaches are Jenner and Block and Proskauer Rose, and this again according to law.com. Now, law.com obtained information basically through public record requests, and many of these breaches were attributed to phishing attacks, hacking, and vendor security lapses. And when I'm actually talking about who we would hit on stage to gather information, law firms are continuously under attack for this, because if I'm going to go after some major figure, I'm not usually going to go after it, assuming that person, let's say, is a former president of the United States. I'm not going to go after that person directly because they've got the Secret Service, the FBI, the NSA, the CIA, et cetera, that will actually protect them, but their lawyers don't have that, their doctors don't have that, their accountants don't have that, and by virtue of that, those are the ones that hackers are perpetually going after. A lot of very sensitive information is in law firms, and if you are in the legal field, understand that I don't care if your business is small to large, and the very first thing I talked about in Breaches of the Week was small to mid-sized businesses, of which law firms are a part of that group. You guys are under attack and you're being hit, and that is very sensitive. That is reputation damaging, and as you've seen by the numbers, can actually put you out of business, or you might have to declare bankruptcy and hopefully survive it. So take that for what it's worth. But law firms, you're under attack, and you're no different than any other vertical that we've seen basically be aggressively targeted by hackers worldwide. And so those are your breaches of the week. Were you affected? Let me know. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me on YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, guys.